The auditorium smelled like old wood and fresh flowers, the kind of mixture that makes important moments feel heavier than they should. I adjusted my cap one more time, the tassel catching the late afternoon sunlight streaming through the tall windows of Harvard Law School's graduation hall. 3 years of sleepless nights, part-time jobs, and ramen dinners had led to this moment. My stepmother Linda sat in the third row, her blonde hair perfectly styled, wearing a cream-colored suit that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. She held her phone at arm's length, taking selfies with the backdrop of my achievement behind her. My father sat beside her, fidgeting with his tie, occasionally glancing at his watch like he had somewhere more important to be. I had worked 3 jobs to pay for law school. Linda knew this. She also knew that I had graduated summa cum laude, that I had been accepted to clerk for a federal judge, that everything I had accomplished was mine, and mine alone. But looking at her now, I could see the familiar tightness around her eyes, the way her smile never quite reached them when she looked at me. The dean began calling names. Sophia Chen. I walked across the stage, diploma in hand, cap secured despite the gentle breeze from the open windows. The applause was polite, scattered. I found my father and Linda in the crowd. He was clapping. She was checking her phone. After the ceremony, I made my way through the crowd of families and graduates. Linda intercepted me before I reached them, her manicured hand touching my elbow just a little too firmly. "Well, congratulations," she said, her voice carrying that particular tone I had learned to recognize over the years. Though I have to say, Sophia Law School isn't exactly the same achievement it used to be. These days, they'll accept just about anyone who can fill out the financial aid forms. I felt my stomach tighten. "Excuse me?" "Oh, don't take it personally, sweetie. I'm just saying that when your father and I got married, we hoped his daughter would aim a little higher than taking handouts and working in some government office. But not everyone is cut out for private practice, I suppose." The words hit like a physical blow. Around us, other families were hugging, taking photos, celebrating. No one was close enough to hear, which Linda had calculated perfectly. "I earned this," I said quietly. "Of course you did," she replied, patting my arm in a way that felt more like dismissal than comfort. "With all that financial aid and those little scholarships for underprivileged students. It's wonderful what programs they have these days for people who need extra help." My father approached, looking uncomfortable. "Linda, maybe we should." "I'm just being honest, Richard. Sophia needs to understand that the real world is different from academic handouts. When she's making $30,000 a year in some courthouse, she'll realize what I mean." I stood there in my graduation gown, diploma clutched in my hand, surrounded by the success I had fought for every single day, and felt smaller than I had in years. The worst part was that my father said nothing. He looked at his shoes, at the crowd, anywhere but at me. "You're right," I said finally. "I don't belong in your world." Linda's smile widened, as if I had finally understood something important. "But I built my own." Before she could respond, I turned and walked away. I had made it maybe 20 steps when I heard a voice behind me. "Sophia Chen?" I turned around. A woman stood there, maybe 50, wearing a simple black dress and carrying a small bouquet of white roses. She was Asian like me, with kind eyes and the kind of posture that suggested she was used to being listened to. "Yes. My name is Judge Margaret Chen. I believe you're clerking for me this fall." My breath caught. Judge Chen was legendary, the first Asian American woman appointed to the federal bench in Massachusetts, known for her brilliant legal mind and unwavering integrity. I had applied to clerk for her on a whim, never expecting to even get an interview. "Judge Chen, I'm so honored to meet you. I didn't know you were coming to. I came to see you graduate," she said simply. "And to give you these." She handed me the roses. "White roses were always your favorite when you were little." The world tilted. "I'm sorry, what?" Judge Chen looked at me with eyes that suddenly seemed familiar, like looking in a mirror across time. "I'm your mother, Sophia. Your biological mother." I felt like the ground was shifting beneath my feet. "My mother died when I was 3. My father told me." "Your father told you what he needed to tell you," she said gently. "When we divorced, I was a young lawyer working 100-hour weeks, trying to establish my career. Richard convinced the court that you'd be better off with him, that I was too focused on my work to be a proper mother. I was 28 and heartbroken, and believed him when he said it was what was best for you. I stared at her, searching her face for something that would make this make sense. You've been alive this whole time? I've been watching from a distance. I know about your grades, your scholarships, your work ethic. I know you've been supporting yourself since you were 16. I know about the 3 jobs and the ramen dinners and the nights you studied in the library because your apartment was too cold. How do you know all that? Because I've been trying to figure out how to come back into your life for 15 years. Because I never stopped being your mother, even when I wasn't allowed to be. Behind us, I could hear Linda's voice carrying across the courtyard. Richard, where did she go? We need to get photos for my Instagram. Judge Chin followed my gaze. Is that your stepmother? She just told me I don't deserve any of this. That I'm just taking handouts and I'll never amount to anything in the real world. Something shifted in Judge Chen's expression. It was subtle, but I recognized it, the same look I got when someone underestimated me in a debate. Would you like to introduce me? I hesitated. I don't know if I'm ready for all this. You don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. I looked at her, this woman who shared my eyes and apparently my stubborn streak. Okay. We walked back toward my father and Linda. They were standing near a fountain, Linda positioning herself for another selfie while my father looked around with increasing irritation. There you are, Linda called out when she saw me. We really need to get going. I have a dinner reservation at. She stopped when she saw Judge Chin beside me. Dad, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Linda, I'd like you to meet someone. My father looked up and went completely pale. Margaret. Judge Chin nodded calmly. Hello, Richard. Linda looked between them, her social instincts kicking in even as confusion flickered across her face. Oh, are you one of Sophia's professors? No, Judge Chin said. I'm her mother. The silence that followed was deafening. Linda's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to form words that wouldn't come. My father seemed frozen. Her mother is dead, Linda said finally. No, Judge Chin replied evenly. Her mother is a federal judge who has been watching her daughter become everything she was meant to be, despite being told she didn't deserve it. Linda's face flushed red. I don't know who you think you are, but I'm Judge Margaret Chin of the U.S. District Court for the District of Massachusetts, she said, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had spent years making decisions that shaped lives. And I'm very proud of my daughter. She turned to me. Sophia, would you like to have dinner? There's a lot we need to talk about. I looked at my father, who still hadn't spoken, and at Linda, whose carefully constructed afternoon had just crumbled around her. Yes, I said. I'd like that very much. As we walked away, I heard Linda hiss at my father. You told me she was dead, Richard. You told me. I know what I told you, my father said quietly. Judge Chin, my mother, and I walked in silence until we reached her car, a modest sedan parked under a tree. Why now? I asked. Because you're about to start your career, and I wanted you to know that you never have to prove yourself to people who refuse to see your worth. She unlocked the car. And because I couldn't let you start the next chapter of your life believing that you're alone in this world. She was right about one thing. I wasn't alone. For the first time in my adult life, I felt like I had someone in my corner who understood not just what I had accomplished but what it had cost me to get there. 3 months later, I was sitting in Judge Chen's chambers, going over case files for an upcoming trial. She had asked me to call her Margaret, but it still felt strange. We were taking things slowly, building a relationship on the foundation of who we were now, not who we might have been. There's something I need to tell you, she said during a break between cases. I looked up from the brief I was reviewing. What is it? Your stepmother has been calling my office. I set down my pen. Linda? Why? Apparently, she's been telling people that I'm not really your mother, that it's some kind of elaborate hoax or publicity stunt. Margaret's expression was carefully neutral. She's also been spreading rumors that you cheated your way through law school. I felt my face flush with anger. Of course she has. There's more. She's contacted the Massachusetts Bar Association, questioning your character fitness for admission.
I ser det her.
Can she do that? She can try. But the bar looks at evidence, not gossip. Margaret leaned back in her chair. However, I think it's time we set the record straight. What do you mean? She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a thick folder. Birth certificate, custody records, divorce decree, medical records from when you were born. Everything that proves I'm your mother and that your father lied about my death to avoid paying child support. I flipped through the documents, seeing my life laid out in legal terms. You've had these all along? I've been building a case for 20 years, Sophia, waiting for the right time to use it. And now is the right time? Now is when you need it. The next week, Linda's campaign against me escalated. She had somehow gotten my law school transcripts and was showing them to people at her country club, pointing out that I had received need-based financial aid as if it were evidence of fraud. She was telling anyone who would listen that I was a scholarship student who didn't belong in their social circles. What she didn't know was that Margaret had friends. Lots of them. Federal judges tend to know other federal judges, and they don't appreciate attacks on the integrity of their clerks. The turning point came at a charity gala that Linda had organized for the hospital where my father worked as a surgeon. It was supposed to be her triumph, her moment to shine as the perfect doctor's wife who raised funds for good causes. I wasn't planning to go, but Margaret convinced me otherwise. Sometimes, she said, you have to show up to claim your space. We arrived together, Margaret in an elegant navy suit, me in a simple black dress that I'd bought with my first paycheck from the clerkship. The ballroom was filled with Boston's medical and legal elite, people who wrote checks to charity and wrote their names on hospital wings. Linda spotted us immediately. She was wearing a gold dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent, and her smile faltered for just a moment when she saw us walk in together. Sophia, she said, approaching with a drink in her hand. I'm surprised to see you here. This is really more of a professional crowd. I am a professional, I replied calmly. Linda's eyes flicked to Margaret. And you brought your friend. I brought my mother, I said. The conversation around us quieted. People were listening now. Oh, please, Linda said, her voice carrying across the room. We all know this whole charade is just embarrassing. Sophia, honey, I understand you want to believe this story, but adults can see through it. Margaret stepped forward. Mrs. Chen. It's Mrs. Williams now, Linda corrected sharply. And I don't know what kind of scam you're running, but… The only scam here, Margaret said, her voice cutting through Linda's protest, is the one your husband has been running for 20 years. She opened her purse and pulled out a document. This is a court order for unpaid child support. 20 years worth. With interest, it comes to just over $200,000. Linda's face went white. That's impossible. It's very possible. Your husband told everyone I was dead so he wouldn't have to explain why he never paid a dime to support his daughter. He let his child work 3 jobs to put herself through law school while he paid for your vacations and your jewelry and your charity galas. The room was completely silent now. I could see phones coming out, people recording. Margaret continued, I've spent 2 decades building my career and watching my daughter build hers. And now I'm going to make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of man would let his child struggle while he lived in luxury. Linda looked around desperately, realizing that her carefully constructed social position was crumbling in real time. Richard, she called to my father, who had been standing near the bar, frozen. Richard, tell them this isn't true. My father walked over slowly, his face gray. Linda, we should go. Tell them, she demanded. He looked at me, then at Margaret, then at the crowd of people watching this unfold like a terrible soap opera. I can't, he said quietly. Because it is true. The aftermath was swift and brutal. By the next morning, the story was in the Boston Globe. By the end of the week, Linda had filed for divorce. By the end of the month, my father had written me a check for the back child support, along with a letter I never opened. Margaret and I didn't talk about it much. We had more important things to focus on, like the Supreme Court case we were working on, or the fact that I had been accepted to a prestigious law firm that specialized in civil rights law. But sometimes, Late at night in her chambers when we were working on a particularly difficult case, she would look up from her notes and smile at me. "You know what I regret most?" she said one evening. "What?" "That I missed watching you become who you are. But I'm grateful I get to see who you're becoming." I looked at her, this brilliant woman who had given up so much and found her way back to me anyway. "I'm grateful too," I said. 6 months later, I was sitting in my new office at Henderson and Associates, the civil rights firm that had offered me a position after my clerkship ended. My nameplate read Sophia Chin, attorney at law, and, for the first time in my life, I felt like I was exactly where I belonged. Margaret knocked on my door frame. "Busy?" I looked up from the brief I was writing. "Never too busy for you." She came in and sat in the chair across from my desk. "I have a proposal for you."
"I'm listening."
"There's an opening for a federal prosecutor position. It's competitive, but I think you'd be perfect for it." I leaned back in my chair. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know that you have options. That you never have to settle for less than what you deserve." I thought about Linda, about all the years I had believed I wasn't worth fighting for. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Do you ever regret giving me up?" Margaret was quiet for a long moment. "I regret the circumstances. I regret believing your father when he said it was better for you. But I don't regret that it made you who you are, someone who fights for herself and others, someone who knows the value of earning everything you have. And now I get to watch you change the world." I smiled. "No pressure." "None at all," she said, standing to leave. "Just know that whatever you choose, you'll never have to prove yourself to anyone again. You've already proven everything that matters." After she left, I sat in my office, looking out at the city where I had struggled and succeeded, where I had been dismissed and then claimed my place anyway. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Saw the article about your new job. Congratulations. You always deserved better than what I gave you. Dad." I stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it without responding. Some bridges, once burned, aren't worth rebuilding. But some relationships, even when they start 20 years late, are worth fighting for. I turned back to my brief, my mother's words echoing in my mind. You never have to prove yourself to anyone again. She was right. I had already proven everything that mattered, to the only person whose opinion truly counted. Myself.